How's it going, guys? Stolen here with Raised by Sharks, and today we're going to show you how to make a build around self-sustaining solo play, or just being in a group and not having to rely on them to heal you or pick you up ever. It's high DPS and high vampire style build for increased sustainability. To start with, the one you should be using for your specialization is Demolitionist. Demolitionist gives you a cheap option to increase turret damage, which you may or may not use depending upon how much skill you get into this build. I'll explain later why that's important. Also, it gives you increased damage to targets out of cover, which is good because it's going to synergize with the flame turret. Again, I'll tell you about that later. As well as giving you LMG damage, which is second most important, and SMG damage, which is by far the most important part of this. Overall, the Demolitionist is going to synergize best with this build. So now let's get into the build as a whole. The SMG is going to be the most important part. The secondary weapon you're going to want to run is probably going to be the LMG, unless you can get some of the exotic weapons that will boost your SMG's damage when they're holstered. Also, it really won't matter what pistol you're using, but because this is a high critical hit build, something with finisher talent is most preferred because it gives an extra opportunity to hit max on both the SMG and LMG. The one I'm using is a little bit lower of a gear score SMG because I wanted one that had the stats that I liked the best. Hopefully I'll get a better one to drop soon, but for now it starts off with 14.5% critical hit chance. Okay stats. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find the right SMG that suits you best, because really any of them will do for this, especially if you can get the chatterbox. This one in particular gives me 12.7 thousand damage, 540 RPMs, and solid accuracy and stability, as well as a quick reload time. It gives me the killer talent, which increases critical hit chance by 50% after killing an enemy for 5 seconds, increased magazine capacity, and 2 ammo regen every 5 seconds while in cover and holstered. This allows me to hit the critical hit cap very frequently, especially when combined with the pistol's talent. Can transfer over to the LMG to make sure that the LMG hits its critical hit cap. Now, as for the mods don't really matter as much. I went with one that gave me minus 10% critical hit chance, but then replaced it with plus 20% on the muzzle. The way I set it up gave me the most comfortable feel for making sure that I hit my targets and I'm constantly regenning myself. The LMG you're going to want to use is probably something that's a little bit more accurate and better for long range to synergize with your SMG. I also went with close and personal, so that way if I kill an enemy with my LMG and I switch to my SMG, I'll not only be regenning, but I'll be shredding enemies. Another notable talent I have on here is stop, drop, and roll, so that way if I'm playing alone or I'm playing on high-end difficulty missions and I get a status effect on me, I can roll once every 60 seconds to remove the status effect. Before we get to the armor, let's talk about the skills. You're going to want to use the flame turret because the flame turret, especially in the higher difficulty missions, will still burn the enemy regardless, meaning that the enemy will be stuck standing in place out in the open for bonus damage from your LMG, as well as giving you free shots with your SMG if you needed to heal yourself. You can place it down and manually press left bumper again to make it fire, continuously quartering off sections of the map so you can focus on the enemies to your right while the enemies on your left are burned in place. The other skill is the Reviver Hive. Yes, well, the Reviver Hive is totally broken right now and it works anywhere between 1/3 of the time to 2/3 of the time, and there's a million theories on what makes it work and what makes it not work. The thing is no matter what, it still will work sometimes. So sometimes when you go down, you'll get picked back up by this. You could also still use it to throw at teammates to pick them up. The mods on them aren't super important because it's a low skill power build, but for example, if you have something that's blue rarity or really old, it'll probably still work on there, and I have 21% duration on my flame turret, which helps me a lot because when you press left bumper, the duration is reduced. Alright, let's get into the meat of the build, which is the armor. For starters, you're going to want the 5.11 tactical set, so you get 5% protection from elites and 10% extra incoming healing. We'll get to the individual pieces now. The mask is probably the least relevant piece of armor to this build, so the one I went with just gave me increased sustainability. 5% total armor, some health, cooldown reduction for my skills, and 10% health on kill, which is the start of that vampire effect. The chest piece actually has some really good talents and stuff on there, so it's a little bit better. I didn't need any brand sets from it, so I just happened to get one that had skill power on it. That's irrelevant. The part that you want to look at here is the 11% crit hit chance, some armor, a lot of crit hit damage, which is crucial, 10% armor, and some mod slots that help me out, especially that incoming healing and armor regeneration. The holster, I went with the Araldi holdings, so that way I get 10% accuracy, which makes sure that I'm hitting my targets healing myself, 14% critical hit chance, 20% explosive damage, which synergizes with the demolitionist stuff, as well as an offensive mod slot, which allowed me to get extra critical hit chance, critical hit damage for my SMG, and weapon damage. Now here on the knee pads, I went with the Sokolov Concern, so that way I get 10% SMG damage, 2% critical hit chance, some armor, and also restorative for 10% more health on kill, further enforcing that vampire effect. We're going to skip over the gloves and get to the backpack. We're going to save the gloves for last. The backpack was my first piece of the 5.11 tactical. The attributes I rolled on it were critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and weapon damage. It was pretty much a perfect roll for this build. The talents I got on it were hazard protection, which is okay, especially for the higher end stuff. A lot of the enemies will have incendiary or shock ammo. This will help you a little bit with that, as well as 20% armor regeneration, which synergizes with this build really well. Now the most important part of this entire build is the gloves. The 5.11 tactical gloves rolled with clutch talent. They were sold by a vendor for a little over a week. They're really, really important, and they're sold at all world tiers. They're gone now, so hopefully you got it, because the clutch talent is probably the best armor talent in the game, and it's the most important part of this build. These gloves are the second piece of the 5.11 tactical, giving you increased incoming healing. Whether or not that applies with the heal on kill and the heal on critical hits, I don't know for sure, but it definitely helps. You can definitely feel the difference, because anything your teammates do or you do to yourself to heal you will help, and then if it does work with the critical hit heals, that just makes it even better. Before we show you a final stat screen, I just want to give you an idea of what this build can do. Here it is against an elite enemy. And now let's change it up to named enemy and show you what kind of damage it could do, and then I'll show you the LMG. I get very good accuracy with it. I'm able to consistently hit critical points, and one magazine almost entirely took out a named enemy, and if you look at the DPS there, pretty solid, and it would heal me for a lot if I had any damage on me. Now as for the LMG isn't even perfected, but one clip of this LMG and I'll be able to take out a full named enemy. This build gives you really high DPS and gives you a lot of opportunity to be healing yourself as long as you're playing correctly. Now here's the final stat screen. You get 10% hazard protection, 20% armor regeneration, 2 stacks of health on kill, 10% armor, critical hits restore 15% health and 2% armor, and 20% explosive damage. So basically, you're going to get a ton of health when you kill, you have bonus armor and hazard protection, your armor is going to regen at 20% the speed, and critical hits are going to restore your armor and health. And that's before you even get to any of the weapons. The weapon talents are really up to you and what you find in loot drops and what works best for you, but this is what I used. I used the killer, so that way with my SMG, LMG, and pistol, I'll always be hitting the cap. Extra magazine size and regenning ammo, so that way I don't ever have to leave cover, and I can shoot a little bit more before I have to reload. The close and personal on my LMG, as well as stop, drop, and roll, so that way I can hit targets for more damage a bullet after killing somebody with my LMG, and I can also remove status effects. The base critical hit chance on this build is 57% with 52% critical hit damage. That's a lot of extra damage you'll be dealing to enemies, especially because once one skill procs, you're usually going to be hitting the cap on critical hit chance. I get a little bit of bonuses here to reload speed, accuracy, and stability based on the mods that I was using, but that's going to be entirely up to you and what you need to be comfortable. The build gives you 4% all weapon damage bonus, as well as 5% LMG damage bonus, but I only have one tier in the demolitionist build upgraded. Once you get all three, you'll have 15% LMG damage bonus. You get 32% SMG damage, 7,300 health on kill, 18,300 health regeneration, as well as some good resistances, most notably burn resistance. The skills won't really matter too much, but 3% cooldown reduction will help a little bit. That again really depends upon what mods you have. Note my armor right now. See how it's just picking right back up, and my health is constantly at max. That was just on red bars where they couldn't really sustain too much damage. Here's a little freebie bonus for those of you who stuck around. If you go on the map and look for this little jagged point at the very bottom, look at the tip right there. You're going to want to set a waypoint for that, and when you get here, you'll see this boat. Get to the other side of the boat, and you'll find an apparel cache hanging in a tree. These reset daily, and you can come back and keep shooting them for more loot. So there goes the flamethrower turret to stop the guy from being able to rush me. Tap left bumper and keep it firing, and now he's going to be stopped in place while I focus on the enemies that can shoot me from further away. Notice how I'm still being shot at, and I'm not taking too much damage to my health because I'm regenning it as I go. I don't even have to be in cover right now. Thanks for watching Raised by Sharks. Remember to leave a like and subscribe for more. We're planning for the top 5 weapon talents in the game, so keep an eye out for that if you still aren't sure yourself. And thanks for watching.